1 minute ago, far within the vast wilderness owned by Eustace Conway, an object concealed deep under the earth was at last unearthed. The tale tied to this revelation carries a deeply unsettling vibe. Keep watching for the full details. And right before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe to catch more eerie tales like this. What seemed like a plain stretch of terrain proved to be far from mundane. The explorers swept aside the mud, exposing a peculiar corroded lid half entangled in twisted roots. As one reached toward it, the surrounding woods appeared to pause, releasing a subtle exhale that swept through the branches, drawn out and deep, eerily resembling a person's breath. They were unaware at that moment, but the item they uncovered wasn't linked to any lodge or underground shelter. The forest encircling Eustace Conway's territory sank into an absolute hush, so profound that even the breeze seemed to cease its flow. The trunks remained motionless, their foliage locked in place mid-sway, and the sole noise remaining was the irregular scrape of footwear crunching into moist ground. It was the sort of stillness that mimics anticipation, poised for an event to unfold. The group venturing across the estate halted their chatter. One glanced rearward, as though anticipating a presence, yet there was emptiness, only the dense expectant atmosphere and a subtle buzz from an invisible source. They had trekked for almost an hour that afternoon, directed solely by aged charts and vague remnants of what appeared to be paths. Eustace's domain extended broadly and untamed, resembling an infinite labyrinth of timber and gloom. Yet something felt off that day, as the further they advanced, the more muted everything became. Avian calls that echoed shortly before had disappeared. Even the typical drone of bugs, standard in such woods, had vanished entirely. It felt as if the woodland was cautioning them against proceeding further. One individual, called Drew, paused and faced the foliage. "Are you sensing that?" he murmured softly. The rest nodded, though many were uncertain what they acknowledged. Drew perceived it wasn't mere absence of sound, but a weight that pressed low, oppressive, and creeping under the flesh, the variety that convinces you of being observed despite isolation. Drew inhaled gradually, and his outgoing breath emerged visible, despite the temperature not being chilly. No further words were exchanged, and they continued onward at a reduced pace, attuned to their own footfalls reverberating in a woodland that ought not produce echoes. The route they trailed ultimately constricted into a depression where the soil appeared darker, nearly ebony. The odor shifted as well, subtle initially, akin to aged timber mixed with a metallic hint. Then it intensified, resembling an element foreign to pristine terrain. The explorers shared glances but remained mute. Drew's beam device blinked once, then repeated before extinguishing fully. Upon reactivating it, the glow captured an anomaly amid the trunks, something linear, artificial, protruding from the earth. They halted abruptly as the quiet seemed to constrict around them. One shifted his stance for stability, and the noise of his sole on pebbles rang out excessively, feeling inappropriate. Drew signaled for stillness, then approached what his beam had illuminated, elevating the device once more. Yet the atmosphere grew denser with every advance. It wasn't terror yet, merely that primal gut feeling alerting you that reality isn't as vacant as it appears. From somewhere rearward, a brittle twig snapped with a crisp, piercing tone from proximity. They pivoted collectively, but visibility revealed nothing, only shadows upon shadows. Upon redirecting attention to Drew's illuminated find, they noticed the form in the soil had altered position. Drew and companions blinked repeatedly to confirm it wasn't optical illusion, that it had relocated. Or perhaps it was always positioned thus, and their perceptions were aligning belatedly. It resembled a portal that was squat and asymmetrical, interred partially under tendrils and lichen. Lacking timber framing or grip, simply a shadowy incision in the terrain, as if the ground had been cleaved apart. Drew dimmed his beam and sensed his neck muscles tense. Nobody ventured movement, and even respiration felt hazardous at that juncture. The woodland had transcended mere quietude, as though it were eavesdropping. Every impulse urged retreat, yet curiosity had already ensnared them, that mute attraction compelling folks to access entrances best left sealed. Abruptly, the quiet shattered with a distant hollow resonance emerging from subterranean levels, akin to a noise unfit for any creature. It manifested as a gradual pull, followed by a muffled impact, as if an entity were repositioning beneath the surface. The explorers retreated, eyes widened in alarm, anticipating repetition. But it ceased as quickly as it arose, abandoning only that intolerable calm. Drew knelt, his beam device quivering in grip. He extended toward the item, displacing grime and foliage to expose additional buried perimeter. It wasn't stone or root, neither crafted nor constructed. The others gazed in astonishment, speech trapped in their necks. They remained oblivious that their contact involved not merely Eustace's property, but an element he had concealed, with the woodland striving to preserve the mystery. As the final particles of earth tumbled free, unveiling what appeared as the edge of an ancient metallic fastener, a sudden blast of air surged through the branches, sufficiently forceful to disrupt the day's hush. It resonated almost like an exhalation, profound, extended, and bizarre, as though the timber itself had restrained an unwanted exposure. The explorers stayed wordless, simply fixated downward at the obscure form in the terrain. The woodland lapsed into quietude anew, yet this instance it wasn't void, and somewhere under their soles, an item appeared to adjust once more. The surrounding atmosphere felt weightier post that noise, as if the woodland had drawn nearer. The trunks appeared identical, but an aspect had transformed, their shades elongating beyond norm, and their tendrils seeming to coil in intentional designs. Drew withdrew from the fastener, his gaze shifting between the shadowy slit in the earth and the odd manner branches overhead inclined toward it. It seemed the whole locale had been subtly arranged around that precise location, as if the timber had protected it across years. The others fidgeted restlessly, yet silence prevailed as all sensed the draw. It surpassed mere interest now, it was an alternate summons rendering the atmosphere vibrate against their epidermis. Every audible cue and stride resonated in mismatched proportions to the area. One, the group's youngest, spotted a subtle etching on a close trunk. He informed the rest, approached, and cleared the surface with his garment. The emblem beneath was antiquated, irregular, indicating incision by a blunt sharp tool. It wasn't a familiar character. Drew neared, elevating his beam, and the glow revealed additional identical etchings dispersed on adjacent trunks. Each directed toward the concealed aperture, previously unnoticed. They lacked resemblance to property indicators or path markers. They appeared purposeful, perhaps as deterrents. Those coils particularly induced unease, given their age, the surface had overgrown some borders, engulfing margins. That signified presence for years, possibly decades, unspoken by anyone. One suggested Eustace might have etched them to denote an unwanted discovery site. Yet the notion held little merit, as closer inspection clarified the etchings lacked steady execution. They were frantic, jagged, as if hurried repetitions, incising profounder until the blade aired. The beam flickered anew before failing, plunging the woods into obscurity momentarily. In that void, they detected a subtle cadence, not vocal nor beastly, merely a deep drone weaving among trunks, encircling them. Upon beam restoration, the drone halted, but the coil etchings appeared deeper in shade. Drew desired progression, but hesitation gripped others as focus shifted groundward. The earth near etched trunks now differed, arid and fissured despite recent precipitation. The identical coil form emerged subtly in the mud, not incised but imprinted, diminutive and reiterated, as though an entity had circled dragging. Explanations eluded them, they merely observed as beams sliced shadows. Then another spotted filament-like strands dangling from an overhead limb. Inspection revealed not arachnid silk, excessively robust, linear, oscillating sans airflow. Drew contacted one, it severed noiselessly, dropping like desiccated tendon. Glances exchanged. One murmured, "We ought not linger." Yet distance traveled rendered departure improbable, as abandonment felt impossible. The etchings, bizarre calm, and subterranean portal interconnected somehow, comprehension pending. The metallic aroma resurfaced, intensified, acrid to nasal passages. A beam captured a sparkle near another trunk base. Drew advanced, knelt, displaced soil with protected palm. Discovery was unnatural, slender metallic panels flattened against earth, moss-clad. Beneath moss, subtle humanoid depressions, as if placements were intentional then veiled. The group receded gradually as intertrunk spaces felt constricted. The woodland wasn't simply mute now, it pulsed with tension, vitality, having guarded secrets excessively, reluctant to relinquish. A rustle ahead, a singular abrupt shift. Beams elevated, yet void, only trunks, etchings, and gradual creak of invisible subterranean adjustment. Drew refaced the aperture, the fastener now partially cleared, dimly shining under glow. Tree etchings all converged there. Coils, odd soil patterns, root curves, all directed. Drew recognized non-randomness, a path, communique, or caution misunderstood. The drone returned, deeper, emanating from terrain. Explorers eyed one another, ashen, mute. An allure beckoned nearer, unadmitted. As Drew advanced cautiously toward interred lid, a shade traversed soil, not arboreal, luminous, but subsurface. It glided once, deliberate, evident. Then realization, tree coils weren't arbitrary, they mirrored subterranean motion outline. Terrain underfoot began subtle tremor, as if awakening below. Drew stabilized beam, quivering over revealed metallic fastener. Closed tree coil examination showed faint pulsation in low light. He knelt anew, clearing final earth clumps until hatch perimeter fully visible. Larger than anticipated, insufficient for upright passage, adequate for crawling. Absent hinges, insignia, lock, sole-weathered gray fastener. Group formed loose ring around, awaiting verbal initiative, none offered. Drew extended gradually to fastener, contact chilled atmosphere. Fastener emitted subtle throb, heartbeat-like. Hesitation, then tug, no initial yield. Renewed force, dull snap as bond broke, ensuing odor propelled retreat, stagnant, moist, ancient rot hint. Lid elevated with prolonged metallic wail from age, revealing vertical shaft. No descent aids, merely tight earthen tunnel. Drew's beam scarcely bottomed, estimated 12 feet, revelation halting breaths. Walls plank-lined, irregular, hand-hewn appearance. Burned odd forms resembled external coils, cruder, profounder. Suspended from driven spikes, cloth scraps, tiny ossicles, vitreous containers with murky fluid oddly reflecting. One whispered storage-like, but Drew discerned otherwise, not storage, deliberate concealment. He descended warily, soles embedding in soggy base. Atmosphere laden with rot. Beam swept gradually, door spotted, diminutive, timber, partially decayed, iron bolted tight. Surface bore profound gashes, not tool-made, nail origin. Drew immobilized. Upward glance to pale-faced companions, quivering beams on walls. Unspoken thought, possible entrapment. He unfastened, echo thundered narrowly. Hinges yielded sighing, beyond, low-ceiling chamber shed-sized. Crammed, timber stacks, antiquated metallic vessels, flattened hides, rudimentary trunk table. Atop, crude implements, bone-carved, corroded ferrous. Eye-catcher, rear wall charcoal ash sketches on wood, multitudes. Identical tall slender faceless form amid trunks. Encircling, lesser kneeling forms, palms elevated. Sketches intensified downward, harder pressure splintering wood. Stomach churning, coil beneath each, not mark but portal. Drew averted, scanned, corner cloth-wrapped pile. Approached, unveiled, tiny irregular ossicles, fractured. Indeterminate origin. Above calls unanswered. Chamber felt dynamic, atmosphere stirring. Beam caught ceiling filament vanishing wallward. Gentle pull, soft ticks echoed, upper shift, beam dust. Shouts for ascent, pre-movement, deeper wall thud, slow, trailing, intentional. Beam shook sketches, faceless leaned light ward. Thud repeated, scraping faint. Slow retreat tunnel ward, pulse racing. Prior scent amplified, metallic moist blend. Narrow wall fissure opened, pale shift through. Non-rapid, light catching. Fresh dirt pressed hand mark, not drawn/carved. Slid downward, vanished. Drew ascended frantically, aids pulled as sub-thud. Lid slammed, retreat, labored breaths. Sub-rhythm persisted dragging until silent fade. Woodland stilled, tree coils darker, event absorbed. Wordless. Drew fixated buried lid, quivering grip. Known, not mere aged refuge, Eustace constructed for evasion/containment. Woodland silent anew, atmosphere unexplained low drone, earth unsleeping. Atmosphere viscous, breaths labored uncertain. Drew cleaned palms garment ward, stubborn dark streaks. Avoided companions, sensible words absent. Awaited woodland shift, avian cry, tension-breaking gust. None, foliage weighted, unseen pinned. Lid relief veiled halfway, earth reclaiming. Trail return, sky twilight. Woodland silence trailed, steps unnaturally amplified, distant replay. Drew rear-glanced pursuit-like. Void, overly proximate upright trunks. Estate edge, group dispersed directionally sans farewell. No return plans, no discussion. Silence propagates, dawn, local sensed alteration. Woods changed, nights chillier. Faint tree knocks, post-sunset rust earth odor drift. Weeks on, Drew avoided sight, mind occupying hourly. Self-persuaded imaginary/logical. Handmark recalled, fresh, moist, descending. Unanswerable, Eustace whereabouts? Expected emergence post-rumor, absent. Calls unanswered. Property visitors repelled locked gate, erroneous woods. Cabin dark windows, occasional nocturnal chimney vapor. Brief search team forested, circled densely. GPS failed hatch proximate. Volunteer claimed subtle non-standard hue glow pulsing vanishing silently. Exit pale, reticent. Online proliferation uncontrollable, fuzzy entrance images, nearby hike whispers audio, off-grid bunker theories. Drew's brief shared footage pre-failure, unlivable rough desperate walls drawings. Tunnel network unfinished comparisons. Mountain abandoned homestead similar ancient symbols, coil circles doorways Eustace linked leading nowhere. Darker, Eustace discoverer not builder, hidden. Proximity guarding inside/outside prevention. Nocturnal hiker dim subglow pulsing breath-like. Approach, moist metal soil sharp underlying scent. Fled pre-source. Morning local serious. Valley indoors night. Canines prolonged bark then mute. One claimed dawn vigil tall motionless tree-lean figure house watching, blink gone. Drew ceased shelter talk, refused media, erased images, relocated monthly. Companions similar, post-hatch night courage lacking explanation. Rumors, post-floor scratching. Eustace unsighted, wordless silence. Ongoing, periodic hiker online post sub-thud same patch. Coils persist multiplied new trunks. Hollow ground markers belief. Prolonged stand, faint matching pre-open drone. Wind trick/sustained motion post-discovery. Woodland resilenced origin. Hatch erased earth leaf layers non-existent. Witnesses, unsettled pulsing nocturnal breath-like soil, avoidance including Drew. Months post, Eustace news faded whispers persistent. Sublights, spiral matching crooked growth. One markings followed deeper rehumming constant earth memory. No return. Theories, Eustace subliving lifelong guard unseen. Shelter pre-land older. Opening reminded presence. Today unknown tree buried. Pre-dawn low mist still, drew like subsound slow patient waiting.